What's up and what's happening, TPE Fam? We're back with another episode of the Pivot Experience podcast, where our aim and goal is to help leaders get better each and every day. My name is Alex Seal, and I've spent 20 years with the world's most caring company. And as you guys know, I've been hyper active on LinkedIn, making connections and networking with some really great people who are doing some really great things. I had the opportunity to stumble across this young lady by the name of Amanda Finnigan. She is working at a Chick-fil-A really close to my hometown here in Houston, Texas. And I just love the energy from the first post that I saw from her. She's incredibly passionate about her job. She is incredibly passionate about being a follower of Christ, and everything that we had a chance to talk about in this episode, I believe leaders need to hear it, and it will definitely impact your journey and impact how you think about your walk in leadership. So I can't wait for you guys to hear this episode, and I can't wait for you guys to be able to be encouraged as I was, facilitating the interview, listening to Amanda and just how she sees people and how she views herself in the business and everything that she just kind of stands for. It's something that you can truly tip your hat to and pay respect towards someone who is a young leader who is passionate about getting things done and just making it happen. So without further ado, man, let's get into the episode. What's up and what's happening, TPE family? We're back with another episode of the Pivot Experience podcast, where our aim and goal is to help leaders get better each and every day. My name is Alex Seal, and I've spent 20 plus years with the world's most caring company, and I enjoy engaging with other leaders who I feel like will bring value and just perspective to our audience. Now, on today's show, we have another special guest. In transparently, and this has kind of been a reoccurring theme here. I ran across this individual on LinkedIn, and in 20 years of doing this job, there's a certain level of energy that you're looking for in the people that you want to serve alongside you. In today's time where talent might be scarce, we might be on the quote unquote war for talent. There's some people that just jump off the page when you see the energy that they bring to the table. And I ran across this young lady on my LinkedIn feed, and I couldn't help but to connect with her and try to follow her, because every post that she makes, everything that she talks about really speaks to the heart of what I believe Chick-fil-A is. The way she thinks about serving and growing and just helping build a business is something that I've really had the opportunity to enjoy just watching. I just had to have the courage to reach out to her and try to get her on today's show. And I'm talking about Amanda Finnigan. Amanda, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. And I'm super grateful that you reached out. I have gotten super active on LinkedIn and never planned for it to really amount to anything, but I've made a ton of really great connections. And so I'm always happy when someone reaches out. Always glad to chat.
Yeah, definitely. So, Amanda, if you would please, for myself and the audience, kind of give us a synopsis of who you are. How did you begin working in, Chick-fil-A of all places? How did that become your destination? And just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So really my faith is the central part of my whole life. I have always believed in God, followed God. That's always just been the center of who I am and what I do. And so every day my mission is just to be a testament to God's grace. And I never thought that I would be doing that through the chicken business, but here I am. And so I was born and raised in Houston, still there today, and born to both my parents and one older sister, lots of cats in the house growing up. And I was homeschooled as a young kid and really learned a lot of just kind of how to teach and motivate myself through that, I think. And then I went to a private school later on, did community college, and then went on to university. And growing up, I was always involved in, extracurriculars, swim team, choir. Music was always kind of my thing, sports not so much. And so I was always just kind of the person that wanted to stay busy, do different things. I was really involved with church growing up. That was always something instilled in me, again, very like faith centric. And so just serving and caring for others was something that was a focus of mine pretty early on from a young age. And, growing up and kind of going through middle school, early high school, and some friends of mine starting to struggle with mental health issues and kind of just being exposed to a lot of just the darkness and pain in the world, just really opening my eyes to like, man, like life is tough and there's a lot of people going through a lot of different things. And what's the answer for them? What's the answer for me when things don't go our way, And for me, I found in my life, the only answer is Christ. The only answer is God's grace, like God's undeserved favor to have created me, to want a relationship with me, to guide me through life. And so just growing up kind of with that, the center. And so going into college, because of just kind of my experiences, I decided to study psychology. And I really was dead set on going into the mental health field. That was like my thing. So it kind of morphed. I first wanted to be a counselor because there's different licenses you can get, different kind of higher level degrees you can get depending on what you specifically want to do in that field. And so first I thought counselor, and then I had really narrowed down on social work. So I planned to get my master's in social work, and work at a hospital was actually my ideal setting because in my mind, I had a lot of work experience at that point, working in ministry, doing like internships with worship ministry students, children's ministry, those types of things. And I enjoyed that and definitely was able to apply my passions of like service and encouragement there. But I remember thinking to myself, like, not everyone is going to walk into a church in their life, but everyone walks into a hospital. That's what I thought at the time. Of course, now it's everyone walks into a Chick-fil-A. But at the time, I was very dead set on that. And I was going into my final year of university at Houston, previously Houston Baptist, now Houston Christian University. And I just needed a summer job just to save up some money. And I loved Chick-fil-A, and there was a new Chick-fil-A being built right next to my university. And so I ended up going in to eat breakfast there the first day that they opened the dining room, because this was in 2021. So this was like somewhat fresh off COVID. So they opened the dining room. It was this whole big thing. And I went in, and the operator, Steven, just happened to be there. And so I got up and introduced myself and said, hey, I want a job here. And they interviewed and hired me on the spot. And then what started as a summer job turned out to be a whole lot more. And so I went into that semester of classes and found out actually that I could graduate early that December. And so throughout kind of that process of just adding on the classes that I needed, trying to figure out, what grad school I was applying to, different things like that, I actually started having a lot of conversations with Steven and my operator, with other people in my life, with my family, and really realizing, like, have I put myself into a box that God never actually put me in by saying I'm going to work in the mental health field and like that's all there is, that's all I'm going to do. And realizing that was much more my idea, and kind of my idea of trying to control my journey and my story essentially, and control how I wanted to apply my passions, instead of actually seeking the Lord and seeking like what opportunity might God have for me in some unknown space that I don't even know exists yet. And so that had really been my experience working at Chick-fil-A. I live in a very diverse city and I work in a very diverse Chick-fil-A. And so just getting to know people and becoming, close friends with people that have completely different backgrounds than I did was really something new to me. And I really just learned so much about myself, about others, about my faith, even in God. And there was just endless opportunity to influence people. I mean, even our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A, right, to not only be a faithful steward of all that God has entrusted to us, but to have a positive influence on all who come into contact with Chick-fil-A, And so what does it look like for me to utilize every single guest interaction, every single team member interaction to point someone to something greater than myself, greater than them, And so finding that I could apply my passions of service and encouragement and all those things in this space that I never saw myself in. I mean, I'd never worked in fast food, never thought I would be bagging chicken for a living, but just loved it. I loved every minute of it. And so having these conversations, planning to graduate, realizing I think I'm about to let a pivot happen that I never expected. And so I ended up actually not applying to grad school. So I graduated with my bachelor's in December of 2021 and kept working at Chick-fil-A with really no idea what was ahead. At that point, I was a trainer, so I was like one step up from a team member. Had no clue what I was doing with my life at that point. And, just was honestly along for the ride. And it was kind of the first time I really let go of my ideas and my plans before God, which was really a shift for me. And so going into that season of life, I did get promoted to be the scheduling lead at my store, which I'm still in that role today. And so I'm in charge of the schedule, making the schedule for a whole restaurant, leading shifts, developing younger leaders, helping manage labor, those types of things. And then a little over a year ago now, I got transferred to our other store because we're a multi-unit. And so now I've been the scheduling lead there for a little over a year. And in that time of just developing as a leader, helping develop others, really just feeling the impact and the legacy of my operator and the way that he's influenced us positively, I really have felt inspired that I do want to make Chick-fil-A my long-term plan, long-term goal. Of course, I hesitate to use the word plan now. I say idea because I've learned not to carve anything into stone, because that's just when God's going to start laughing and say, no, actually, there might be something else. So there might be something else. But for now, Chick-fil-A is what I'm heading towards. And so my goal is to apply for a leadership development program within the next year, and then apply for operator after that. And so that's where the journey's taken me. And yeah, I'm still to this day really involved with my church community, really involved with music. I write music. I have a song on Spotify. I'm pretty sure only like 25 people have listened to it, but that's okay because I put a song on Spotify and that was the goal. So, really involved with worship ministry at church. Really love just walking with younger girls through life, whatever that looks like. Really enjoy going for walks at the park, going to the gym, painting my nails, all the typical, things during the week to fill my time. But really just living each day, trying to be a testament to God's grace and just be able to point to the ways that he's been with me every step of the way.
Wow. I love the fact, number one, that how in tune you are with your purpose and your like drive, like what's pushing that, what's what gives it life. You almost just took all the steam out of my first question, because I think it's apparent to me after that I understand what drives your leadership, and a lot of the things that you say. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with Dan Cathy. I think you had to have been here long enough. It sounds like to me you've been here long enough to be under his leadership from a corporate standpoint. And there's something that he said a long time ago. I remember when Chick-fil-A was second mile service has always been a thing. But when the operators go to next, or what was formerly called seminar, they would have the keynotes, and Dan would always give a keynote. And I never forget it. He had a waiter's towel on his forearm, to illustrate this idea of service. And and everything you said kind of brings me back to when he was talking about when we perform at an excellent level on the first and second mile. That's just the hook to get people to come to our establishment and do business with us, so we can really minister into their lives through being great people, by being good people. I mean, I think that's that message really sticks with me now. I know there's a lot of conversation around, there's tons of numbers and metrics that measure our performance as a business, and from Chick-fil-A to Chick-fil-A, there's this internal competitive spirit that we all have to be number one and to do all these things, and I love that, but I love really the foundation and the real meaning as to why we want to be so excellent. Sure, we're not a nonprofit business, and so we want to generate income for our operators, ourselves, the support center, Chick-fil-A in general. But the big thing is that we want to let our light shine so bright that when you do come in contact with us, you might have thought you was coming for a meal, but you were actually coming for an experience that goes beyond that. And you really very, very eloquently put things that I talk to our team members about when they talk about the things that they want to do, their plans, right? Quote unquote plans that they think that they have. And I say, a lot of those things that you think about that you want to do can be done from this building with these people, the team that you serve. If you just turn the angle, it's not about so much the what, it's more about your why, and everything that you just said there really just drives home this idea of like, hey, if I've got a big heart for people, I care about developing folks, I understand the grace that I'm afforded it, and I want to return that back to other people, and Chick-fil-A is just the right place to do it. And I don't know why Chick-fil-A just attracts music majors. I've been working with a bunch of music majors over the course of my tenure. That a lot of them have gone on to be band directors, choir directors, and music teachers. But it's really just refreshing to hear you stand in that idea of, hey, I understand my passion beyond the framework in which I thought I was going to do it. I understand my why can be facilitated no matter where I am. So that was powerful. It was potent. And thank you for sharing and being so candid and transparent with us today. Because that was, I think, whenever this episode releases, a lot of people need to hear your perspective, because I think it's important for people to realize that, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and just what you thought was the medium that you was going to get your passion through, you never know what form that will come in. So that was awesome. Now I want to ask you, because I would imagine this question here, I'm curious to know what your answer is. How would your team describe you? I mean, just in the 10 minutes that we've been here, and the idle post that I see on your timeline, I can't imagine working with you 40 plus hours a week. So, what is the perspective people have of you, and then how do you maintain that, or like your brand as a leader?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's always a tough question, especially because I tend to be very like introspective and try to have and maintain good self-awareness, so I'm constantly evaluating myself essentially. And so it's easy to take that view that we have of ourselves and project it onto other people, whether it's good or bad, positive or negative, and assume that someone views us a certain way when they don't. So it can be hard to like discern the difference. But I would imagine, and I think it would be fair to say my team would describe me as someone who definitely has room to grow, and particularly in terms of just my composure, kind of the energy that I put off specifically when I'm stressed. Because as you could probably tell, I'm a pretty expressive person, and my face says things before I say them. And so that can be good when I'm in a great mood, and it can be really terrible when I'm not. Or if I'm even dealing with a difficult conversation with someone, and my face is saying something different than my mouth is, that can get me into trouble for sure. So definitely room to grow in those areas. But I think they would also say that I'm very passionate, that I am very hardworking, and that I care a lot, because I really do.
Awesome. And that level of self-awareness is key as you continue to grow and develop, and we all have room to grow, right? None of us are perfect, and leadership is a never-ending journey, but you being aware of those things, I think, speaks volumes about your character. And I'm sure if your team has a chance to listen to this, that they probably appreciate you just owning that. And so I love the fact that you were willing to do that. Appreciate your honesty there. You say that you're the scheduling lead, and you are responsible for schedule, and you're also responsible for helping lead and develop other people. What are you working on right now in your restaurant? Either something new or something that's been ongoing that you were plugged into. What are you doing right now to help people grow in your restaurant?
Yeah, for sure. I very much have learned, you know, probably the hard way, that it all starts with self leadership. Like, I can't lead anybody else to be healthier, be the best version of themselves, if I'm not a healthy best version of myself, right? And so how I'm leading others is ultimately going to simply reflect how I'm leading myself. And so I have to always make sure that I'm maintaining healthy habits, staying true to my values, staying true to what's most important to me, what I know that I need to be filled up, because I can't give anything that I don't have. I can't give out of surplus if I haven't filled my own cup first. And so that's just always an essential and ongoing work, I think, that I'm doing, is seeking to lead myself well, and accept ultimately God's leadership well. And then in terms of, towards others, after that, as the outflow of that, I tend to give more weight to just the day-to-day conversations, because I've learned that while I want influencing people to be this like big magical button that I just like press and like boom, it's done, I influenced you, it's really just a matter of, I mean, it's the Chick-fil-A slogan, even, it's the little things, right? It's the same with leadership and development and influencing people, right? It's the little things, it's those daily, emotional deposits, that I would call them. It's checking in with people and saying, hey, how are you doing today? It's asking how someone's family is doing. It's remembering something that someone mentioned 3 weeks ago and following up about it. And then it's getting into deeper conversations. Hey, what are your goals? Hey, tell me where you're at and where you want to be. Hey, tell me something that a barrier that you're facing right now. Talk to me about that. Having and fostering those kinds of conversations to get people thinking about those types of things. And it's just doing that every single day and doing that with different team members for the season that they're in my restaurant, and in my scope of influence, because the reality for most people in the restaurant is they're not going to be there long term. And so how do I leverage the time that I have with them now to be intentional in the day in and day out? And so it's not, something specific or like a project that I'm working on, but that's just kind of my mentality and how I approach the development of others. Really is, it's slow and steady. It's not, I'm going to do this one big thing and then it's all going to be done. And that being said, I am planning one big thing, but that is actually a recent idea that I had that I really just feel that we need, we being kind of the leadership team in my store, really just needs a time of encouragement and just kind of realignment with our vision, and not just the vision of our restaurant, but our personal visions, because I think that's something that I know wasn't on my radar until pretty recently in my life. What's my mission? What's my why, as we would say in Chick-fil-A lingo, but my personal why. Why am I here? Why am I part of this team? Why am I giving my best today? Why do I want to go into LDP? Why do I want to be an operator? Like, those questions all have to be answered as a foundation for anything that we're doing, and so in the store, and for all the leaders in my store, like, all of them have a why for why they're there and why they're working to give their best and to serve others. And so I really want to create an event and just kind of a time for us to have a conversation and really just delve into all of those things and really get a good grasp on our own why and then each other's why, and my my organizational vision is to make this about more than just chicken. It's very simple. I really appreciate my operator that he made it simple, and he made it something that we can all relate to and kind of make our own, but making it more than just chicken, and so I really hope to have this time with the leaders where we can kind of realign and just learn more about each other and kind of better connect with why we're really here and what we're really trying to accomplish.
I love all of that. I want to kind of rewind a little bit, and something that you said at the top of this portion of the show, where you talked about personal leadership, and you mentioned that you have to be in alignment first before you can try to get others in alignment, right? And so, what are some like practical things for anybody that's out there that heard that wants to do the same? What are some practical things, like, what podcasts are you listening to? Are you reading leadership books? Like, what specifically, if you don't mind sharing, what are you doing to continue to keep your personal edge? That I always say, keep the personal blade sharp, right? Like, how do I, you use a knife and you use it for so long, the blade gets dull until you got to sharpen it. So what are those things that you're specifically doing to keep your blade sharp?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, honestly, it's different for every person. And what I've really learned to embrace and what's helped me the most is realizing that it's different for me every single month, week, sometimes day. And it's really about knowing myself and not like shaming myself into thinking that it has to be one certain way or the other. And for me, I kind of just have a running list of, there's my non-negotiables, like things that for sure I'm going to do this. So for example, for me, that's going to church. Like, every Sunday I'm going to be in church, every, day that I'm scheduled to work, I'm going to go to work. That's a non-negotiable. I'm going to make sure I get at least 5 hours of sleep. That's my non-negotiable, and so the non-negotiables, but then kind of the longer running list of just, these are my healthy habits that I'm kind of going to rotate through, and I'm not going to beat myself up if I don't stick to them, but I'm always going to pick 2 or 3 that I'm going to do every day. So some of those things include like writing a gratitude list, something super simple, but literally I just sit down, I just write everything I can think of that I'm grateful for. It takes 5 minutes and it totally changes my perspective. One of those things is going to the gym, and that's something that's a big, people can use it to beat themselves up or say that it has to be this way. It has to be 5 days a week or nothing. And that used to be me for a season, but then I was not in that season anymore. And so now I go to the gym 2 or 3 times a week. And that's what helps me the most, making sure that I am spending intentional time in scripture, reading the Bible, spending time praying, not just for myself, but for other specific people in my life, for specific things for them. And so that's something that I always incorporate into my day. Just the little habits like This is actually something that I picked up from the example that my operator sets, where I have seen him do this, and I know that this is a practice he does, where he will get to the restaurant and he'll pray in his car before he walks into the restaurant. And so I actually started doing that. I started just like stopping and praying in my car before I walk into work, and it totally changes your perspective, you know. And then now I started doing it when I arrive anywhere else, just like if I'm driving somewhere, you know, whether it's the grocery store, coffee with a friend, or whatever, like I just stop in my car, pray for the conversation, and, you know, head in. It's not like I'm sitting there for an hour or anything crazy, but just that act of like surrendering that conversation or situation or work day to God really changes things, you know. So those little habits for sure. Books, yeah, definitely. I am not on track for sure at all with my reading goal for this year, but slowly but surely I'm working my way through a list of some leadership books and also just some like theology books now and then, things like that. I just finished reading one that I would definitely highly recommend. It's called Purposeful by Kelly Needham. And it's basically just about, you know, how our purpose is not a verb, it's a noun. Like our purpose is Christ, to know and love and be loved by, you know, Jesus. And that's our purpose. And if we try to make it something else, it's not going to work out, you know. So just finished reading that book. Podcasts, yes. Secret Sauce podcast. I was actually a guest on it. Super honored. But love Secret Sauce. Love all the guests on that. Winning Mindset Mastery, I think, is what the title of the podcast is, but it's April Sprint's podcast, and it's just like 5 or 10 minute snippets about mindset. That's been super helpful for me. Yeah, just lots of things like that. LinkedIn, networking is actually something that I consider to be a healthy habit in some sort of sense, you know, where just connecting with people outside of my bubble has really given me a lot of perspective, and I've learned a lot and picked up a lot. I have a Google Doc that's titled Nuggets, because something my operator always says, you know, is, you know, in every conversation, every book, every podcast, every piece of material that you encounter, there's something that you can take away from it, and it might be one nugget, it might be a 5 count, an 8 count, it might be a whole tray of nuggets. You never know, but there's always a nugget, you know. So I have this Google Doc titled Nuggets, and every like little piece of something that I take away that sticks with me from anything, I put into that document, whether it's a photo or a quote. And so I have a kind of running list of all those things. But those are just some examples. And like I said, it's not like I stick to them 24/7 all the time. It's not like every day I go to the gym and read the Bible and do a gratitude list and pray for an hour and get coffee with a friend and get 18 hours of sleep. Like, obviously none of that is all possible at the same time. So I kind of just, you know, pick your battles. That's what it really is. Pick your battles when it comes to healthy habits.
I love how you embrace the idea of being agile or having the agility in what you're doing. You know, a lot of people will get fixed on this, on their goals, and when they don't do it, they get discouraged, and then that discouragement leads them to just not trying at all. Like you said, like if it's not 5 days at the gym, it's nothing. You know, it's you have to, and I like how aligned your conversation is, because what you're describing currently, you know, circles back to what you said at the top of the show when you're saying about grace. Like you're affording yourself grace. Like, hey, I know I have a running list of what I feel like is it will be profitable for me as I develop myself as a leader. But you're giving yourself the opportunity to say, you know what, I might miss the mark today, and that's okay. You know, I gave what God allowed me to give today, and you have to you have to learn to be okay with that. And so that was very well put. I appreciate, again, your candor is greatly appreciated by myself and the audience. And I am a fan of the Secret Sauce podcast as well. I have recently had the opportunity to have Josh on my show here, and I was able to be a guest on his show. Hadn't released yet, but I'm looking forward to that conversation, and I had a great conversation with him as well. But no, you said a lot of great things. That gratitude list, I believe, is something that people, particularly younger people, should just get in the habit of doing. You know, in this fast-paced world where social media has our attention spans going from one thing to another thing to another thing, you know, you really don't have the opportunity to take a step back and reflect on the things that you should be thankful for. You know, the blessings that you have. And so I think that's something definitely a young leader should incorporate into what they do. And I love the fact that you keep a running list, a Google Doc, or for anybody out there listening, it might not have to be a Google Doc. It can be just a note in the Notes app on your iPhone, or whatever your note taking mechanism is. Start accumulating those lists of things that gave you perspective. I'm a little older, so we used to have notebooks back in the day, and I often leaf through those to see where what were we thinking, what was going on, what was impacting me 5 years ago, 6 years ago, just to get refocused and recentered on what our objectives are and how do we live out the vision that we're doing. But so I love all of the help that you just helped a lot of people with their own fears of, if they're not doing it and they're not rigid and they're not disciplined. Discipline is good. You did mention your non-negotiables. There is some things that you're going to do, that you have a short list of things that, hey, these are happening no matter what. But then those other things are seasonal. And I can't help but to agree with you. I was talking to one of the other coaches here at the TPE. Her name is Giovanna. She's in Baytown, actually. You might know Giovanna. She's at the two Baytown stores, John Martin and Garth. I might be being too specific here, but whatever. Anyway, she talks about just the season that you're in calls for different things. And so I definitely would agree with that. Like, in the wintertime we might eat more chili and soup, and in the summertime we're doing fresh fruits. So as our actual palates change from season to season, so do the things that feeds us, feeds our mindsets, feeds our spirits. And so I appreciate you articulating that in the way that you did. It definitely encouraged me for sure. And because you feel like you fall short as a leader when you're not doing all of those things. You feel like at the end of the day, when you challenge yourself to try to chase a certain level of discipline, you miss the mark. It does give you some sense of disappointment. But just knowing that, hey, you have if it's in the cards for you, if God says so, you have another day to try again. So that's incredible. And so you've already answered this question a little bit, but I think I would like to, from I guess, a big picture perspective, look at this item. I understand you're going through LDP, in which we have a guy right now that he's going through LDP in our restaurant. He's on his second interview. So we'll love to connect you guys, off away from here, just in terms of, because I love your energy and I think you guys could add value to each other. But what does the next 5 to 10 years look like for you? Obviously hoping within a year to apply for LDP. At that 5-year mark or so, you should be, grand opening your first restaurant. 10 years from now, maybe multi-unit operator. But outside of the actual work as an operator, what are you looking to achieve through that medium? I mean, you're achieving so much now as the schedule lead. As your territory begins to expand as an operator, what does that look like for you in terms of impact and influence?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that definitely, when it comes to my mind, is scary to think about, because again, it kind of goes back to, I feel like I have to fit into a certain box, or I have to say like, oh, this is the type of impact I want to have on the community. Like, I'm passionate about this kind of service work. And I don't really have an answer fully formed yet for that. That's kind of still what I'm discovering about myself, about my values. There's so many problems in the world. There's so many struggles and different types of struggles people can have, and I think I've learned that it's more so just being available, being available to support in the ways that people need it, and not just saying like, well, if you need this type of support, then I can give it, and if not, then sorry, but just being available, being humble to be able to meet people where they're at, but one of the things that inspires me to want to be an operator is just seeing the avenues of influence that Stephen has had in my life, being able to sit down at a table and have a conversation that maybe one of us thought was going to go one direction and it went a different direction, but being able to really just walk through life with the way that he walks through life with us, with his leaders, and the way that I hope to continue walking through life with leaders younger than me. I think just showing up in that space, showing up as a business person, just in and of itself can have such a huge influence on someone. And so, my goal and my hope is to have that influence on young people in a way that points them to Christ and that points them to something greater. And I really just value those individual relationships and those team relationships, and I think for people like me that didn't expect to end up at a Chick-fil-A, I hope to be the person one day that doesn't convince them that Chick-fil-A is the best and it's the only way to go for their career, but I hope to be the person that influences them to say, like, Christ is the best and Christ is the one that is going to get you, through into whatever your next destination is, and that he is really the center and the purpose of everything. And so that's my more foundational goal, but in terms of practically the impact that I want to have, I am definitely really passionate about just language and just multicultural, aspects of community. The majority of my restaurant, about 90 people, and probably 85 of them are bilingual and Hispanic. And so I know Spanish more or less is what I say. I will never, well, not never say never. I'm working towards it. But right now I will not claim fluency. But I can, hold conversations and everything. But that is something that I've always loved, is just connecting with people through other cultures, and really just understanding people's, hearts, understanding what they are wanting for themselves, and being able to just work with them to work towards that and work towards their goals wherever they come from, wherever they're wanting to go, And so really just that's why, honestly, I hope to stay in Houston and see myself, becoming an operator in the Houston marketplace, just because of the diversity and the opportunities that are there. Like, you don't have to travel to go to 15 different nations. You just come to Houston and here they are, right? And so lots of opportunities for not just service work, but just being involved with walking with people through their lives, and just having resources at your disposal, to help with education. A lot of people want to pursue something and there's like an educational barrier or certification that they need to get, and so even as the scheduler in my role now, I try to work with people and help them out and say, like, hey, you need to take this class for the certification. How can I work your schedule around it? And so how much more still as an operator will I hope to have that mentality and that ability to not just offer someone leadership development, but offer them financial stability, not just offer them financial stability, but offer them resources to help them pursue a higher goal, and all of those things kind of tying in together, but having those resources and those avenues to provide that support for people.
No, I love that. And I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, sharing your why, sharing your passion. I You lived up to the hype, I guess I could say, in terms of what my expectations were for this conversation. I think you shared so many nuggets. If I was, you probably fill up a few pages of docs if I was documenting this conversation this way. I want to wish you the best of luck on your big project that you got coming up in terms of galvanizing your team towards their personal wise. I'm sure I'll have a front row seat on your LinkedIn as you document that journey, as you develop that event. Hopefully that goes well. And before we get out of here, how can people find you, Amanda?
Yeah, well, definitely LinkedIn is the place to go because it's super active on there. You just shoot me a DM, connect with me, and let me know. And also, I have a Calendly, that's hard to say, link on my LinkedIn profile. And so you can actually go there and just schedule a meeting with me just to chat. I put everything on my calendar. So you can just pick whatever day works for you. And I would love to connect.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, TPE family. Another great guest, an excellent team member, an excellent leader, a person who is really in tune with their why. And I am looking forward to her continued influence, not only on the people that she serves with directly in her organization, but also the countless other people that she's impacting through LinkedIn and through conversations like this. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. And until next time, TPE family. Peace.
Tap into the Pivot Experience, where we help young, hungry entrepreneurs move on to the next step.